Okay, so today we're really diving deep, getting into something that I think is going to be super relevant for you right now, children's books.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
But
especially with the little one on the way.
we're looking at a book called The Redduck Family Tales, A New Life.
Yeah, this one looks great, and it's tackling some pretty big topics, for little ones, and it's all centered around, the arrival of a new sibling, which I think is perfect timing for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I see here that, one of the big things they're talking about is family values, which, as a phrase, it can be a little bit like, okay, well, what does that actually mean?
It's a bit broad.
Yeah.
It's a little broad. What are these ducks actually teaching?
It's not just, be nice, it's more than that. It shows, for example, gratitude. They make it a daily practice, like when Kyle, he's a little duckling, has breakfast with his parents,
Okay.
and they're thankful for the food. And I don't know, it made me think, is that a way to introduce mindfulness to kids at a younger age?
It's true. Yeah. Just that idea of being present, appreciating what's right there.
Exactly.
That's cool. And then there's this whole part about Pyle reading to his unborn sister. Have you seen that in other books? Is that a common thing?
It's something you see sometimes, and I think it's really smart because, studies show that babies in the womb, they can actually hear
Oh, wow.
and respond to sounds.
Right.
So he's not just, being cute. He's actually potentially,
Building that bond.
yeah, fostering language development before the baby's even born.
See, this is why we do these deep dives, because I would never have thought about that.
Right.
Okay, so they're prepping him for that. And I noticed they even have a whole section about a doctor's visit,
Yes.
which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, they show the ultrasound picture and everything,
Oh, wow.
which I think is great because it makes it less scary.
Yeah.
Right. When you see these things, what's that, all these weird.
That's not so mysterious.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so now, big question. How does this book handle, the where do babies come from talk?
Right, the stork conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so it does mention a conversation with the father duck.
Okay.
And it touches on the idea of God, but it doesn't, go
You
into.
still give
It doesn't give a biological
Yeah.
explanation or anything.
So it leaves it open for the parent to kind of...
Exactly, which I think is, probably good because then you can tailor it to
Yeah, exactly. To what
your
you
own
need.
beliefs, your comfort level.
Exactly. Your own values, all of that.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. I like that how they don't shy away from those bigger topics,
Right.
but they also give you, as the parent, that, kind of freedom to navigate it in your own way.
Yeah, it's a springboard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the emotional side. We talked about these kind of big, life questions. But does it get into, the nitty-gritty of, what it's actually going to be like?
You mean once the baby arrives?
Yeah. Okay, the baby's here, now what?
That's a great question. I mean, from the summary we have, it's not totally clear. But it does emphasize throughout the book these core values like kindness, responsibility.
Right.
So I imagine those would come into play even more once there's, another little duckling running around.
Right, sharing and, all that comes with having a sibling.
Exactly.
This is really interesting stuff, I'm realizing. This book, it's not just a cute duck story.
Right.
It's, secretly a parenting guide
A little bit.
in disguise.
It's true.
I kind of want to read it now, and I don't even have, a sibling on the way.
Well, maybe you could teach us all something.
That's true. That's true. Always good to keep learning. Right.
Exactly.
Well, this has been super insightful. I always learn so much from these deep dives.
Glad to hear it.
So, listeners, now it's your turn. We want to hear from you. If you could ask a children's book author anything, especially one who's tackling these big life moments, what would it be?
We're going to look at how author and family advocate Gloria Warren
Yes, Gloria Warren.
tackles these big emotions head-on in her children's book, The Redduck Family Tales, A New Life.
And it's so crucial, right? Because those early experiences, they really shape how we deal with change later in life.
So true. So tell me more about Gloria Warren. It sounds like she's coming at this with a unique perspective.
Yeah, she's not just an author, she's a family advocate. So she's worked with countless families, seen firsthand the anxieties that kids face. And she's channeled that experience into this really charming story.
So it's not just a children's book. It's carefully crafted to address these specific issues.
It's a tool, yeah.
And I understand this particular book is about a new baby duck joining the family.
That's right. She tackles the arrival of new family members, which can be, a joyous time for parents.
Yeah.
But for kids, it's often really, really scary.
Right. They don't always understand what it means, how it's going to change things.
Exactly. And that's where the communication breakdowns often happen. The parents are trying to be reassuring, like, everything's going to be okay. But to a kid who's worried about, like, their place in the family, that can sound dismissive almost.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but it makes total sense.
Yeah, and that's what I love about Warren's approach. She kind of anticipates those communication gaps, those disconnects, and builds in ways to bridge them right within the story itself.
Like how? What does she do?
She uses the Duck family to model healthy communication,
Yeah.
Age-appropriate explanations, validating the children's feelings. It's like sneaking vegetables into a smoothie. You get the good stuff without even realizing it.
I love that analogy. So it's like healthy coping mechanisms disguised as a delightful story.
Exactly.
And it sounds like she's not just trying to reach kids with this book.
Right. It's bigger than that.
It's like she has a broader mission here.
Absolutely. I mean, she wants the book in libraries, of course, but she's also really targeting educators, social workers, therapists, anyone working with children who are, going through these kinds of family challenges.
That's so smart. So it becomes this like springboard for important conversations.
Exactly.
These professionals can use the book as a tool to help kids process their emotions in a safe space.
That's the idea, to give them the language to talk about what they're going through.
Because, let's be honest, sometimes it's easier to talk about a duck family than your own family.
Oh, 100%. And it makes these big abstract feelings like anxiety and abandonment, a little more concrete, a little less scary.
Right, like, hey, if the little duck can handle it, maybe I can too.
That's powerful. And it makes you wonder, what can we do in our own lives, even in small ways, to offer that same kind of support to the kids around us?
It's a good question to think about, isn't it?
It is. Because a listening ear, a reassuring hug, just acknowledging a child's feelings, those things can make a world of difference.
It's all about creating that environment of support.
Absolutely. Where kids feel seen and heard and understood. And who knows, maybe a book about a family of ducks can help us get there. We're diving deep into the reviews.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. What reviews are we talking about?
We've got two fantastic perspectives lined up, one from Pamela, an adult reader, and another from Quincy. And get this, he's just 13.
Wow. Talk about a generation gap. I'm really curious to see how their takeaways differ, or maybe how they overlap.
Right. It's fascinating. So Pamela really honed in on the book being a useful tool for families, especially those with a new baby.
What struck me about Pamela's review was how she emphasized those practical strategies the book seems to offer. It's like she found a guidebook for navigating the choppy waters of sibling rivalry. And let's face it, that's something almost every family with multiple kids has to deal with at some point.
Absolutely. And I found it so interesting how she picked up on those scenes at the playground in the book, where the kids are all comparing notes about their new siblings.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
Kids learn so much from observing and relating to their peers, right?
Yeah.
So to see those dynamics play out in a safe, fictional setting like a playground in a book, it's almost like a rehearsal for real life.
Exactly. Now, get ready for this. Quincy, our 13-year-old reviewer, he was super drawn to Kyle. He's the older brother in the story, and he's like all in on helping take care of the baby, even changing diapers, which I thought was pretty cool.
That really highlights something crucial about that age group. It's not always about feeling jealous or displaced. Older siblings, they often genuinely want to be involved. And when a story normalizes that, celebrates it even, well, that's powerful stuff.
Totally. And speaking of different reactions, Quincy pointed out how the book shows a bunch of different ways kids react to a new baby. Some are over the moon, others are, kind of terrified, and some are, let's be honest, a little peeved. It's a real mix.
And that's what makes it so effective, right? It throws out the one-size-fits-all approach and acknowledges that, hey, there's no right way to feel. Every kid processes change differently. And I think that makes the story so much more relatable and ultimately more helpful for families.
It's really amazing to see how even with the age difference, both Pamela and Quincy zeroed in on this idea. This book can really help kids, and maybe parents too, deal with those negative feelings that sometimes pop up when a new baby arrives. It made me wonder, is this a big theme in children's literature these days? Have you noticed that?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a common thread.
Yeah.
Addressing those complex family dynamics, finding ways to talk about them. Honestly, that's definitely a recurring theme. But I think what makes these two reviews so compelling is that we're seeing it from both sides of the spectrum. Nabilt Aindi, a teen, which really speaks volumes about the book's ability to resonate with a wide audience. So I'm curious, for our listeners, after diving into these reviews, how would you approach these conversations differently in your own families?
It's such a great question. We explored two very different perspectives on the Redduck Family tales, A New Life. And I have to admit, it makes me think about what my own Ren review would be. What resonated with me the most. I guess that's something for all of us to consider.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today. It really gets you thinking our childhood experiences shape how we approach these same situations as adults. It's something to ponder.
Right.
Until next time, keep exploring.
And hey, if you're thinking, I need this book in my life, you can find Say It Now with Self-Love Kids LLC website.